All right. The final concept with integration that I like to talk about is the average value theorem. Now, when we talk about average value theorem of integration, one of the key things I always like to think about is when you talk about average in algebra, what does that mean? Well, the average value in algebra means that you take the total sum divided by the total number of whatever you got. Well, in calculus, how can you take the total sum? Well, in calculus, we take the total sum of a function by integrating that function from a to b. So if you recall, whenever you integrate, you're doing a Riemann sum, which is the rectangles. And you're taking the heights of each one of these rectangles. And when you integrate from a to b of the function itself, you're actually just adding up all the heights of the rectangles on this interval. Now, to find the average value, we're going to take that total sum, which is the integral, divided by the total number on that interval. So on that interval, we can go from b minus a, and that is where we get what is referred to as the average value theorem. And that's what we have right here. To figure out the average value theorem, we can go through and we can solve this. And I'm going to erase this so you can see what's going on here. All right, go through this. All right, is that we're going to find what is the interval. All right, at what point on the interval does the function assume the average value? Okay, so we're going to find the average value first of this function. So we're going to set this up, and we're going to integrate this function y. So we're going to take negative x squared divided by 2, and we're going to integrate this from 0 to 3. All right, dx, don't forget that. And now we're going to take the average value. So we're going to take divided by 3 minus 0. Okay, so we're taking the average value. We're going to find that first. Now, to do this by hand, we're going to find the integral of this function. So I'm going to use the antiderivative. And to do that, we're going to have negative x. You're going to add 1 to here. So it's going to be 3. And then we're going to divide by 3. So 2 times 3 is going to be 6. All right. And we're going to take that from 0 to 3. And then we're going to multiply all this once we get it by 1/3. And that 1/3 comes from that right there. Okay, so what we have then is this right here is going to turn out to be negative, all right, negative 3 cubed divided by 6, all right, minus, we plug in 0 into there, all right, what we have is negative 0 over 6, all right, which is just 0, all right, and we're going to multiply all this by 1/3, and you can see my work underneath, you can see that right now, and what we have is this, so negative 27/6, which is that, minus 0 over that, this can be simplified to negative 9/2, this, which is actually simplified to here. So here is our average value of our function. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to figure out at what points on this interval does the function assume this average value. Now, this is what's called the, all right, mean value theorem of integration. Is we're going to be applying this because this function, all right, which is a parabola, is continuous, differentiable, and on a closed interval. We're going to now take our function, which is negative x squared, divided by 2, because that's our original function, and we're going to set that equal to, all right, our average value. All right, so we're going to take our function, and we're going to set that equal to the average value from 0 to 3, all right, of negative x squared divided by 2 dx, excuse me, divided by 3. So there's our function, there's our average value, and let's solve. Multiply both sides by negative 2, and I'll have 3 equals x squared. All right, we're going to take the square root, bring the plus or minus square root of 3. But since we are only doing on the interval from 0 to 3, we're only going to use the positive portion, so I'll cancel this out. All right, and we're only going to use the positive portion, so our answer is going to be the square root of 3. All right, and that's it. That is the average value theorem. All right, and if you need to see this, all right, these are all the out value theorems. Key thing is everything needs to be continuous, closed interval. And for our average value theorem right here, the average value of the function should equal a function somewhere on this interval. All right, well, I hope this helps you out on understanding the average value theorem and how to find the average value of a function. So good luck and God bless in the rest of your problems.